Earlier this year, I had the great honor to meet a person who really impressed me. She's not only a serial entrepreneur, a very successful one. She's not only a member of the International Club of Rome. She's not only a fellow in the World Academy of Art and Science, and an expert in artificial intelligence, and that has a PhD in psychology, so she's a very smart person. But what really impresses me is her passion, again, about having an impact in this world, and she is giving and dedicated her heart into something called integral investment. And so I would like to introduce to you Mariana Bozesan.
Thank you. You rendered me speechless. Well, being here and listening to Raj's presentation and realizing in what a beautiful, wonderful environment I am, opened my heart a lot. Thank you. Thank you all. Yes, I am a member in the International Club of Rome because I decided that the Club of Rome needed business to succeed. Who has heard of limits to growth before? The Club of Rome became infamous 50 years ago when it was started to gather some of the most smartest and influential minds to address the issues that our society has on this planet. And they became famous with the publication Limits to Growth that was written as a report to the Club of Rome, and it was warning that if the society was continuing to use the resources as we had been up until then, we will eventually run out of resources, and we will have increased the carbon footprint on the planet, that we will leave the sustainability power of our planet. And many people chose to not believe it, and we cannot blame them because it is very hard. Yet when I was able to join last Friday, Fridays for Future, I don't know about you, my heart opened. And for the first time since I've been fighting for this common cause, I felt that I was in the presence of greatness. I don't know about you. Did you go to this presentation? I'm sorry, I'm so touched right now that I could just keep crying. But have you attended the demo? Yeah, did you go? Because it was, I know guys, come on, work with me here. This is about opening our hearts. Work with me. This presentation is for all of us. I felt that something really important happened last Friday. For the first time in my positive fight, to see these kids holding up 13 years old, 12 years old, 10 years old, we don't destroy our future. And now to witness what's actually happening, what the German government has done, what the EU Commission have done, what's currently happening at the UN right now is significant, is important, and it gives me so much hope. So I hope you can join us. And the reason why I'm standing here is because I want to give you my own insight, my own little contribution to how we can, in our little ways contribute to addressing climate change as being one existential threat that we're facing right now. We all know it. It's nothing new. We got it. The Earth is warming up. What are we going to do with it? And do you guys know? Do you know how we're going to implement conscious capitalism? We met, I think, 10 years ago. It was in Boston, because I knew, oh my God, finally, somebody makes capitalism conscious. And I've been a meditator for 40 years. But it's hard. How do you combine these two worlds? How do you take it off the cushion into the daily business? So what are we going to do? How are we going to implement the Paris Agreement? How are we going to implement the UN SDGs? Everyone talks, oh my God, we have these UN SDGs, we have the Paris Agreement, and then some people say, oh, I'm going to leave it, it's not important, and so on. But you, I, in every single action that we take every single day, how can we take these and implement? Because it's up to us. Never underestimate the power of one. How are we going to do this? And here comes the Club of Rome in place, for me particularly. Because, again, based on the data that was collected over the past 50 years, the science, the original scientists who actually published Limits to Growth, did some amazing work that I'd like to share with you, because transformation is feasible. We can make it happen. However, we need to use our minds, our intelligence. What's actually happening with the UN SDGs? Let me go a little bit back. Who can give me an idea? Well, if you go around, what's happening? I've gone to so many impact investing conferences, and there is this tonic group, and then there are impact investing organizations and companies and foundations and so on. What happens there when you go? BMW Foundation was another event that I just went. You are received at the entrance, and people ask you, well, which one of the 17 UN SDGs are actually implementing? Which ones do you take? What's the problem with that? What if we address number one? And this is what the Chinese have done. Over the past 30 plus years, they have focused on number one every single day. And I admire them from the bottom of my heart. We can learn so much from them. They have lifted 30 million out of poverty every single year by addressing number one. And what happened in parallel? Every other 2 weeks, they did what? They violated which one? Number 13, climate action. Because in order to lift people out of poverty, you use fossil fuels. This is the way we've done it. So the problem with the UN SDGs, if we don't do it in the smart way, is they are contradicting, they're aspirational. And we need to pick and choose those, or do them all together in a way that is sustainable on a round planet. And this is why my presentation today is called Transformation is Feasible, because it's the name of one of the latest reports to the Club of Rome that was designed and developed and simulated based on data collected over the past 50 years by Jürgen Renders, Johan Rockström, and other amazing scientists from the Stockholm Resilience Center. And what have they done? Well, they looked at the UN SDGs and they realized that these UN SDGs can only, and the Paris Agreement, of course, can only be implemented within planetary boundaries. Now, it's not a shame if you don't know. Who knows? Who in this room knows what are the planetary boundaries? Thank you. Well, the planetary boundaries is the operating system in which we live. So this is climate change, ocean acidification, biochemical flows, fresh water. There are 9 that have been determined by scientists in 2009. Go to Google and search for them. This is the operating system within which we have to work if we want to implement the UN SDGs and survive and thrive on this planet. So what is actually happening, the colors on this slide mean that within the green color, we are safe. We are operating within the safe operating system of the Earth. The yellow is just like with the Ampel, the German, the traffic light, right? So green is fine, yellow, yeah, late yellow is not good. And this is where we are, because we're moving to red. So the UN SDGs must be implemented within planetary boundaries. So what this scientific report does, they did the following. They looked, and I'm kindly asked you to take a look at the slides, and I'm very grateful to Johan Rockström and Jürgen Renders for giving me those slides. So if you look on the y-axis, you find the planetary boundaries, and they're going from green to red, and there are 9. And on the x-axis, you see the number of the UN SDGs that at any one time can be implemented within planetary boundaries. The number, 6 at once or 10 at once, and so on. So look at what we've done since 1980. We moved from the green, at the top green, to out of the safe planetary boundary. We have implemented, we went from 8 to slightly 9 UN SDGs that we implemented. And if we continue in a business as usual scenario, which is what we're currently doing right now, without a conscious capitalism rule, we will be implementing close to 12, maybe between 11 and 12 and UN SDGs, and we will be going deeper out of the safe operating environment of the planet. So the scientists then did another simulation, which they did back when, 50 years ago, and they looked what would happen if we would move faster, if we kind of tripled the global GDP. See where we're ending up? Not good for the planet. We will be slightly increasing our UN SDGs, but it won't make a big difference. So what if we tried harder and increase all of this by 30%? Not good either. But there is a smart scenario. There is a way that will take us back into the safe operating system of the planetary environment by 2050. What is this? And this is extremely important. So I know all of you care deeply. Take this. It's a small little report, and try to influence the people that you're working on your own business, because this is the best way, scientifically proven, that we can really help ourselves. So what is number 1? Accelerated renewable growth. We need to double the investments in renewable energies every decade, starting with 2030. This is why the program by the German government, the EU Commission, and so on, moving in this direction is so important. So we need to accelerate the investments in renewable energy. This is number 1. Number 2. Accelerated productivity in food chains. We need to be in a position to feed the people on this planet. So the 1% better productivity. It is possible. It's all within the simulation. Number 3, new development models in developing countries. People who are developing right now, we are already developed, they live in this environment at our expense. We need to support them. So the best way to do is to go to China, go to Ethiopia, go to South Korea and other countries and learn what they have done right. Not all of it was bad. Most of it was good. And help others, particularly countries in Africa, to replicate that. So if you're an impact investor or an entrepreneur and focus on Africa, that's the way. That's the rule there. Number 4, active inequality reduction. What does it mean? We need to have a better distribution. So 10% of the richest should not own more than 40% of the wealth of the GDP in each nation. And number 4, which is my favorite, of course, coming back to the feminine energy, is empowering women. Because that has a huge influence on the carbon footprint, on the human footprint on the planet in general. So empower girls, and because that has an influence on the family planning and so on. By the way, who has heard of Drawdown? Drawdown. There is a plan. Yeah, absolutely. If you haven't heard of Drawdown, it's a wonderful book that has actually collected about 80 particular there are 80 strategies on how to implement, to go back into safe operating, planetary operating system. And number 6 and number 7. Number 6 is girls' education out of the 80 priorities, and number 7 is family planning. Why? Because the difference between one child and 4.5 children is 12 years of education for a girl. That's the impact. It's huge. So what's happening is actually extremely empowering. If I wanted to, I could be depressed all day long, and so are you. But let's honor what's happening right now. And this is extremely significant. If you haven't heard of the Sustainable Finance Initiative of the EU Commission, go and search those documents. They have come up with a taxonomy with benchmarks. They're on the roll right now. Of course, the German, the German declaration on how to implement climate issues it's been criticized all over. This is the German way. If we don't criticize, we don't get better. But it's actually an extraordinarily important step in the right direction because the world is watching us. So all of these things are wonderful. And now I would like to share with you how I have been doing this. How do we do this? How do we implement all of this? How do we address the discrepancy between capital and the heart, between philanthropy and the heart, how do we implement all this purpose and passion and the feminine and the masculine energy? And it all starts here. It all starts in all the everyday little activities that we're doing that help us make the world better. In my particular case, I was born and raised in communist Romania, so right across the border. And this is why when I see such an important thing that's happening, like the Berlin Wall coming down, I am totally hopeful. There is hope for all of us. So coming at age 16 to Germany, my mother was German, my father Romanian, changed my entire life. And of course, when you are hungry, when you go to school without food, when your toes are crooked because you didn't have the right shoes, your teeth are damaged because you didn't have the right nutrition nor hygiene, then all you want is to get out of poverty. And this is what I did. And I was deeply grateful. I was deeply grateful to this extraordinary country, to this amazing, welcoming culture. And I used it. I used it to get to the point where I realized that at any one point, you only have one piece of clothing, only one pair of shoes on. Maybe you need a second, but you don't need more than that. And that changed my entire life. We were lucky, I was lucky, my husband and I, we saw Mosaic in Silicon Valley back in the mid-90s, and we knew a new era is breaking. And we came over here and we started the first internet company that went public on the German Stock Exchange. And then we had multiple homes and across the world, and we were so important. And I was deeply unhappy. Our marriage was on the rocks because we didn't have the inward journey. You know, when you spend all your days looking on the outside, you never take time to look on the inside, a huge discrepancy shows up. And this is where the hero's journey starts for every single one of us, sooner or later. In our case, it was we realized that you go to work during the day, make a ton of money, build companies that are measured by a profit floor, and then in the evening you go and donate, or on the weekends. And most of the times, and I'm simplifying, please don't take me wrong, you go on the weekend to donate, just kind of set it off. And so what we realized, and in my case, I became a philanthropist, of course, because I couldn't do anything else. You cannot leave Romania and not give back. But then I woke up and saw that something is really wrong with this picture. It's not integrated. This is not who we are. If you want to have a glass of water, it's not that your mouth goes through the water and your legs stay behind. No, all of you goes united and does the thing. But our systems are dismembered. And so in the early 80s, this impact investing movement started, which is beautiful, which I consider myself an impact investor. But if you look closer, then you see that they're not united amongst themselves. The ones say, oh, financial first is more important, and some others say impact first is more important. But the truth is, an integrated way of doing it is the way to go forward. And this is what we've chosen to do. However, you can only achieve what you measure. So traditional finance in business is run by profit. I mean, you could come today and say, oh, I want to add people and the planet. We just talked about it to this. Well, try to do this. Start a company, go to the city and declare it. What do they measure? What is your opportunity to really make it happen? At the bottom line, no, you have to make a choice. Do you make a not-for-profit this and that or the other, or a for-profit It's not integrated. It's our systems are not supporting this change, this paradigm. So we need to sneak in. So traditional investing gets measured by profit, and then you find on the other side impact investing that tries to integrate people, planet, and profit, but it doesn't quite succeed, of course, because it's not easy, and it chooses either people or social or the planet or a little, and most of the times they are financially not sustainable. So from my perspective, as again I started to meditate 40 years ago, I decided that an integration of this must happen, must occur. And this would be a conversation or another speech. I chose Ken Wilber's integral model to implement this philosophy, this way of building companies and of investing. Because everything that's on the outside gets reflected on the inside, and the inside has actually a much, much greater influence. So how do we do this now? I am an investor, I'm a serial entrepreneur, I invest in companies, and when it comes to investing, what is the difference between traditional investors and the way we do it? Every single investor starts looking at the business plan by screening, doing the financial due diligence, the legal due diligence. This is step one. In the way we do it, we have a step two that adds the UN SDGs, GEARS, GRI. There are so many ways of measuring the Gen Iris metrics and so on. This is the next step that we include. But then over time, we realized, and by the way, the results at the bottom line of this model is extraordinary, as you just confirmed. In our case, our return over almost 30 years is a multiple of 6.8. So 7 times your investment. Well, try to compare that with traditional venture capital. It doesn't look not even close like that. Why? Because of the next 2 steps, individual assessment and cultural assessment, and you spoke to that. We go deeper into applying those, and then we make a final assessment as to invest or not. What we're looking for, we use tools from Stanford, Harvard, and MIT. This is the reason why I went back and got a PhD in psychology, because at some point, as a computer scientist and a business person, I saw that I was standing on one foot, and you can't stand on one foot for a long time. Psychology, the inside, is much, much more important. And so this is how we did this. Here you see what we're looking for. We call it consciousness leadership. The reason for that is because I'm sure people are aware. For me, conscious and awareness is people are aware that they're talking garbage. People are aware when they do something bad on the internet. They're totally aware. They just decide to do it. So for us, it was much more important to move leadership consciousness to the next level of consciousness, higher levels of consciousness, later stage of consciousness. And so we choose the top 6%. And of course, there are many models that I just chose here. Maslow's pyramid of needs. It was actually mentioned before. Because only at the top, people are able to implement, to make such a company successful. You know, it doesn't make any sense. Don't waste your time. We need to reach the tipping point where things will move in the right direction. Leadership means less than 10% of the people who are already implementing it. The other will follow. So don't waste your time. Look for those who are already there and support these people. And this is what we've done. And now I'm coming slowly but surely to an end. Not because it's simple, but because it's complicated. We've talked about climate change. We've talked about the most important existential threat that we're facing. But there are two others that I just wanted to touch and hope we'll talk later at some other event about this. It's about exponential tech. As a computer scientist and artificial intelligence major, this is very important to me because this is not even on our radar. But it's coming faster, and we need to leverage this to implement climate change, we need to use technology to implement all the issues that we have right now in a safe way. So, yes, we do need to shift the mind. Right now, the economy is actually at the bottom, and the biosphere, these two things are shifted, or turned upside down. We need to change that. And I would like to finish with a painting by Quentin Massès, a Flemish painter who painted this picture, guess when? 1520, 500 years ago. And if you look at the painting, what is that doing? What kind of, it's called the money changer, money lenders. So what you see there are these guy without the teeth, pointing on the pile of coins, the other one holding to more, and these poor guys on the right trying to convince them to give them a better deal, something. Everywhere you look is just ugliness, it's ridiculousness, money ledgers everywhere. There's no beauty, no feminine energy, only profit thinking. And what have we done over the past 500 years? Massès painted this painting at the onset of the Renaissance because he was hoping that we will choose different values to be implemented to support our economic system that was just starting. Only 4 years before, 6 years, 1514, he had painted the moneylenders and his wife. Look at this. This is where he put all of his hopes on the canvas. You can see the beautiful masculine and the feminine energy leaning into each other. The light shines on the feminine energy. She's holding an open Bible at the page with Madonna with the child. It doesn't matter whether you're Christian or whatever. It doesn't matter. It's about the value that is represented in this painting. The masculine energy, the guy also has money on the table, but he also has other things to represent wealth. He has rings to represent relationships. He has pearls that represent loyalty, generosity, beautiful human values. Then you also see in the background, see the apple, original sin, the wooden box that represents the divine, and the candle that is not lit. This is a memento mori. This reminds us why we're here, that we're here only for a short time, and we'd better create an integrated everything, because that brings joy and happiness. And I hope that together we could achieve that. Thank you so much for being here.